Hello everyone, welcome to the Learn More Indiana Student Survey webcast. My name is Sue Reynolds. I'm president of the American Student Achievement Institute. Our organization facilitates the Learn More survey on behalf of the Indiana Commission for Higher Education. And we appreciate the support of Teresa Lovers, Commissioner, and also Jason Beers, the Associate Commissioner and Director of Learn More Indiana. It is because of their support that Indiana schools are able to enjoy administering the Learn More survey. So here's our agenda for this webcast. There are 4 topics that we'll cover. The first part is just survey familiarization. We'll go over the counselor survey, the student survey, and the survey reports. Then we'll look at survey logistics, we'll look at the survey setup, and finally we'll talk about how to administer the survey. So we'll start out with survey familiarization. So first of all, when schools go in to set up the survey, the school will be asked if they want to participate in a counselor survey, and we strongly encourage you to participate in that counselor survey. The counselor survey is taken by one counselor representing all counselors in the school. So this is an optional survey, and again, only one counselor in the school takes the survey during the survey setup. So the survey includes 2 types of questions. One is asking counselors about how they use their time. Specifically, you'll be asked about the percentage of time that you spend performing various types of tasks: guidance tasks, counseling tasks, student advocacy tasks, management, and non-program tasks. And then you'll also be asked to estimate the percentage of students who participate in various guidance activities. We're looking at what opportunities do students have in your school and in your community to participate in academic and career guidance activities. Okay, so when we look at the student survey, first of all, who takes the student survey? It is students in grades 8 through 12, and then a couple of years ago, Learn More added grades 3 through 7. So all students in grades 3 through 12 will take the online survey. And the survey is administered by all Indiana schools. So public schools, private schools, all Indiana schools are invited to participate in the survey. The survey covers this content. There are questions that ask about the students' post-secondary plans, if they're thinking about 4-year college, 2-year college, apprenticeship programs, career colleges, or job training in the military. There are also survey questions that ask about students' interests. So there are questions that will ask students, are you interested in Ball State University and Purdue University and DePaul University? So we ask about the students' career interests and their college interests. And then in terms of student choices, the survey asks about the degree to which will help you determine the degree to which your students are making sound choices in areas that impact academic success and post-secondary enrollment. So there are questions on the survey that talk about the level of academic rigor that your students are participating in. There are other questions about student engagement in school. And then there are questions about their post-secondary and career exploration and their post-secondary and career planning. So basically, we've identified the choices that students tend to make when they're not only successful in grades 3 through 12, but they are also successful in entering post-secondary education and then succeeding in post-secondary education. And we call those student choice questions. Then there are 3 question sets that are optional. When you set up the survey, you'll be asked if you want to include these question sets. So the first optional set will help you identify students' guidance needs, and that asks students about their knowledge, their career knowledge, and their academic knowledge. So it might ask students if they know what a FAFSA is, or if they know where to find a career interest inventory. So we're asking about knowledge. And that, of course, then would align with students' guidance needs. All of those knowledge questions, by the way, are aligned both with the Indiana Student Standards for guidance and also the ASCA standards. Then for the student assistance needs, that's the second optional set of questions. In those questions, we're asking students if there are personal social issues that are interfering with their learning. So the second part of that is really important. We believe that as school counselors, it is counselors' role to help students with personal social issues that interfere with learning. So when we see those questions, you'll see that all the questions are written as, is bullying interfering with your ability to learn at school? Is stress interfering with your ability to learn at school? So they're all formatted that way. And then finally, the third set of optional questions is we ask the students their perception of their school counselor, specifically the counselor's knowledge and their skills and their dispositions. Those questions align with the licensing standards for school counselors in Indiana. So the other thing we wanted to point out is that all of the questions are age appropriate. So we are not asking third graders questions about the FAFSA, but we are asking seniors questions about the FAFSA. Okay, so after you've taken the survey, what I'd like to spend some time looking at is the group data that comes out, the reports that you can get. I know that as school counselors are judging the value of using your time and your students' time, your school's time in participating in the survey, that the big question is the data that we get from the survey going to be of value? So I wanted to show you the reports and help you make that determination. So when you go into the system to get the survey results, you'll get a grid of icons that looks like this. And each of those icons represents a separate report. There's many different reports that you can get out of the system after your students have surveyed. So the most broad report is that icon that's in the top left. That is the summary report for all questions. So if you open that up, you're going to get for all students in your building what percentage of them responded in each way on each question. Then, if you're not interested in looking at all questions, you can also tell the computer, give me a report, but only include the plans and choices, or only include the guidance needs, or the student assistance, or the counselor perceptions questions. And then the other thing that we wanted to point out is that you'll see some of the icons are yellow. Those are private reports that only the school counselor can get. So when you log into this page to get your reports, you'll be asked for a username and password. We'll talk about that in a sec. But that username and password gives you access to the reports that have the yellow icons. And I point that out because I want you to notice that the public can, if you decide to put the counselor perceptions questions on your survey or the student assistance optional questions on your survey, the public is not going to be able to see those results. Nobody can see those results except for the counselor unless you decide to share the results. So I do want to assure you that that information is private unless you share it. Okay, then on some of the questions, you may look at the summary report and you're thinking, man, that's interesting that only 60% of the students agreed with that statement. But I wonder if it's across the board, or is it maybe just my 7th graders that aren't knowing that, and maybe by 12th grade they do. So you can order a drill down report that will disaggregate the data by grade level. And then you may also wonder, is this across the board, this issue, or does this issue apply more to boys than girls, or more to a specific race or ethnic group? Does this issue apply more to lower income students, to free and reduced lunch program students? So there's lots of different ways that we've disaggregated the data to help you identify what we like to call guidance gaps, where there may be some students that have guidance knowledge or at a different rate than their peers. In that group, so you'll see that you can disaggregate all the data by gender, race, ethnicity, lunch program status, 21st century scholars status. I think that's always an interesting one to look at. If students have an IEP or not, so you can kind of see what's going on with your special ed kids, parental college. The one I really like to look at when I'm looking at the data is typical grades. We're going to look at a couple of examples in a minute, and you'll see that all across the reports in almost every school that we've ever looked at, it's no wonder that some students get D's and F's because the choices that they're making are not the choices they need to be making to be successful, and often the knowledge that they have to make the right choices that they need to be successful at school is lacking. And that may be something that you want to think about both as a school counselor and as a school. Your school improvement team might find this data really interesting. We also give you an option for creating a student group. So if in your school improvement plan you're focusing on the achievement of African American third grade boys, you can ask the computer to give you data for that group. So you can create a student group. And then the last one, we'll talk about this a little later, but we also give you access to obtain the names of students who answer specific questions in specific ways. So maybe you want to find out in your school, which kids don't know that we offer AP classes in our school, and then you can pull up those kids' names. We also give you tools where you can send an email directly to those students, or you can print mailing labels if you want to communicate through the mail with those students or their parents. So we think that's a really great tool. Notice that it is password protected, and it is only available to counselors then. So nobody else can get that student list except for the counselor, and the students have to opt in. So we ask the students during the survey if they would like to receive additional information from their counselor or from Indiana colleges or for Learn More, and if the students opt in, then their names will appear on these lists. Okay, so that's kind of where you order the reports in the system. And again, we just want to point out that the individual responses are not available to anyone except for the counselors. And then also notice that even for the counselors, you cannot get individual responses for the student assistance questions or the counselor perceptions questions. We thought that was very important, that nobody ever be able to obtain individual student responses for that, including our staff. So we've made it technologically impossible for us to connect student identifiable information with the student assistance questions or the counselor perception questions. Okay, so here's just an example of what the report might look like. So this is just some student engagement questions. Do you usually ask your teachers for help when you're confused? This is a real school's data. You can see in this school, 84% of the kids said yes, 16% said no. Notice there that we also give you the raw data, so you can see that 16% represented 62 kids. So in this school, 62 kids don't ask for help when they're confused. And knowing that information, that may inform your guidance curriculum as you're designing your program. That may help you decide that you want to include some programming on assertiveness, or just making kids know it's okay to ask for help, or maybe role-playing that with specific kids. I mean, there's lots of things that you could do. Other questions in this section: do you almost always turn your homework in on time? Were you absent fewer than 10 times? Were you sent to the office? And again, if we just look at that last question, we have 23% of the students said that they were sent to the office because they were misbehaving. That represented 90 kids in this school. So again, that may be informing your decisions about the topics that you want to cover in group counseling or in your guidance curriculum, or lots of different areas that this data could impact the design of your program. Okay, future plans, just a couple of examples of those questions. What do you plan to do in your first year after high school? And again, for this school, when I look at the not sure, there's 64 students who in this school aren't sure, what they're going to do their first year after high school. So if I were a counselor in this school, I'd be wanting to find out who are those 64 kids, and I'd be wanting to, provide some extra help for them. What type of high school diploma do you expect to receive? This is an Indiana-specific question, obviously. And again, we have 63 students who aren't sure what kind of diploma they expect to receive. So, okay. Student choices, these are the questions that we think are most important. It's one thing for kids to have knowledge, but we want to know, are they putting that knowledge to action? So are they doing things because they understand academic development, career development, personal social development? So first question is these examples: did you visit a college campus this year? Did you complete the Indiana College Cost Estimator? Did you or your parents attend a program about financial aid? So this is the kind of things that we're asking about in student choices. Okay, then going on, guidance needs. And again, these questions are knowledge-based. Can you describe the level of education that's required for the jobs that interest you? And again, you can see almost half of the students in this school said that they could not do that, or they weren't sure if they could do it. So again, if I were a counselor in this school, I'd be thinking, maybe my guidance curriculum needs to change a little bit there so that we incorporate that content into our programming. How do you know how to find jobs that match your interests? And again, we've got 37% that said no. Can you demonstrate effective practices for interviewing? So again, this data helps to inform the design of your school counseling program. Student assistance needs. Again, this data is only available to school counselors. So controlling my anger is making it difficult for me to succeed at school. Fighting is making it difficult for me to succeed at school. Drugs and alcohol. So we're asking students to identify personal social issues that they have personally that are interfering with their personal ability to learn. So we can see that in this school, about 12% of the kids, 6 to 12% of the kids in these three questions are saying that they have things that are social personal things that are making it difficult for them to learn. So okay. And then finally, perceptions of school counselors. Does your school counselor care about you? Does your counselor have high goals for you? Does your counselor believe that all students are important? So when you, if you decide to administer this set of questions, which we strongly encourage you to do, please remember that the data is only available to counselors. And one thing I wanted to point out on this, one of the schools that we worked with when we first added these questions, this school is probably considered to be one of the strongest school counseling programs in the state. They were always leading edge, wonderful counselors, leadership positions in professional associations. I mean, this was just really a dynamite program. And when they gave the survey to their students said, our counselors don't care about us. And it about broke those counselors' hearts. They thought, how can the kids say that? And they really had to do some soul searching. So those counselors came together and they thought, how could that be that kids don't think that we care about them? Is this a reality or is this just a perception? And they decided that it was not a reality, that they really did care about kids, but they also felt that they had a perception issue, and they worried about that because they thought if the kids perceive that we don't care about them, they're not going to come bring their issues to us, they're not going to ask for our help. And so they spent a couple of years really working to change their image, to change that perception. And what they decided I thought was really kind of interesting. one of the conclusions that they came to is that as counselors, they had talked so much about how busy they were that they thought that they had given the kids the perception that they were just too busy to help the kids. And so that was one of the messages that they changed. They stopped talking about how busy they were all the time because they knew that if they did, people would stop coming to see them because they would perceive that they were bothering the counselors. So something to think about, and I think this data is really interesting for counselors to look at. I strongly encourage you to include those questions on your survey. And just remember that, if the results aren't where you want them to be, that's really good information for you to have. But you don't have to share that with anybody. That's totally, up to you. Okay. So just a reminder, who can access this group data? Everybody can access the plans and choice questions and the guidance needs. That's just, what do kids know, and what are they planning for the future? What choices are they making so far? The only people that can access the results of the student assistance and the perceptions questions that the kids fill out and the counselor questions the counselors fill out, the only people that can access that are the school counselors. Okay, so now you've got all this group data. Let's talk about how you might use that data. Um, so we think that really good uses for the data are to inform decisions that community programs are making, that school programs are making, absolutely, as you design your school counseling program. And then also we aggregate all the data statewide for state agencies to look at as they're making programming decisions and decisions about how to use state resources. So, lots of different ways to use it. Wanted to give you a couple of examples. There's a statewide initiative called the Indiana College Success Coalition. And you'll see that in that initiative, they have listed, it's the second little, right here, the second little tab, the 612 student choices. So Monroe County or any county in the state can pull up the data, county level data, to see countywide what kind of choices are kids making that would support education. So that's one use. Another use is Indiana Gold Star School Counseling. The counselors that are participating with that initiative, sponsored by the Department of Education, they use the survey data big time in the design of their Gold Star programs. So that's another use. But really, for all counselors in the state, we think this is really good data to look at as you're designing your school counseling program. I know that when I was a school counselor for years and years in Indiana, we really looked at this data as we designed our program. So let's just run through one example. Let's say that you're looking through all your Learn More survey reports, and you find data that to the question that is, do you know where to find extra help in your courses if you need help? So, and I'm looking at the data and I'm thinking, wow, 3/4 of the kids say, yeah, they know where to find extra help. That's good. And then I'm thinking further, but that means that 25% either don't know or they're not sure. And again, this is a real school's data. And you're thinking maybe, well, 1 out of 4 don't know. Is that okay? In some schools, maybe that would be okay. I know for me personally, that would not be okay. I want all students to know where to find extra help. So 25%, I can look at the raw data and think, 25%, that represents 300 kids in our school that don't know where to find extra help if they get in trouble academically. And for me personally, that would not be acceptable. For others, it may be okay, but that would not be okay for me. So then I might be thinking, well, I wonder if that's across the board. Maybe it's just the freshmen that don't know where to find extra help. But by the time they're seniors and we've implemented our sound guidance program, they're good. Well, I'm going to look at that drill down report by grade level. And when I do that, I find, there's a little bit of difference between my 9th graders and my 12th graders, but not a lot, not as much as I might have thought there would have been. So I'm thinking, well, if it's not the 9th graders, it's not a grade level thing, maybe it's an income level thing. So I'm looking at the disaggregation by lunch program, and again, I'm seeing that, there's some difference between the free and reduced and the paid lunch kids, but not as much as, not a huge amount. And then I'm thinking, I wonder if it makes a difference when I'm looking at report card grades. And look at the difference there. I think this is pretty remarkable, that when we're looking at kids that get A's and B's, 85% say that they know where to find extra help. When I'm looking at kids that get D's and F's, only 26% know. So, and again, this is when I said before, no wonder, kids are getting D's and F's if they don't even know where to find extra help. So I'm starting to look at, how many students does that represent? Well, if I look at those, so let me move forward here. If I look at the number of kids that said no, there are 15. I look at the number of kids who said they weren't sure, there's 11, so there's 26 kids who get D's and F's, the vast majority of them that don't know where to find extra help. So then I might be thinking, well, I wonder among the A and B students how many kids don't know where to find extra help. Well, there's 48 who said no, there's 29 who said they weren't sure. I mean, there's a lot here that say that they don't know. And, when you add them all up, when we looked at those all numbers, it's almost 300 kids that don't know where to find extra help. So now I might be thinking, let's find those kids and let's make sure that they know it. So now what I can do is I can go to the student list generator to get the names of those kids, and then I can contact those kids directly to help them understand where to find extra help. So I want to talk then a little bit about the individual data, because I'm going to use the student list generator that we just talked about to access the individual student data. So during the survey, in order to appear on these lists of students that want more information, the students have to opt in. So there's 3 questions. The first question on the survey, the opt-in question says, would you like your school counselor to provide you with individualized information about how to plan, prepare, and pay for college? And then if we're telling them, if you say yes, then you're giving our organization permission for your name, contact information, birthday, demographic information, and your responses to be given to your school counselor. And we specify that it's the responses on the academic guidance, career guidance, and the choices questions. So it's not their personal social questions. It's not what they think of the counselor. It's just the academic and career guidance part. So if they say yes to that, then their names will appear on the list that you can access. There's also an opt-in for Indiana colleges. I think this is really cool. When students are taking the survey, they can answer this question: would you like Indiana colleges to provide you with individualized information? If the kids say yes to this question, that allows colleges to be able to go into our database and say to our database, give me a list of kids who are interested in Purdue, interested in information technology, and have never visited a college campus. And then Purdue might send them an invitation to a special event on campus for information technology. So when you give the survey, you're also making it possible for your students to receive information, targeted information from universities and colleges that they're interested in. Another reason for giving the surveys. If you don't give the survey, your students don't get this option. Okay, and then option 3 is we're asking kids, would you like Learn More to give you individualized information? And if they say yes, then this gives Learn More the ability to send targeted emails or targeted mailings to students who answer specific questions in specific ways. Okay, you may be wondering about the FERPA compliance with this, and we went to great length with not only our attorney but also a attorney that specialized with FERPA to make sure that we were in compliance, not only with FERPA but any applicable Indiana code, and we are compliant. We can provide you with a copy of this letter if you need that. Okay, now let's talk about that student list generator. Let's say that you want to get a list of kids who answered a question in a specific way. You would go to the page where you have all the reports. You're going to click on one of the student list generator icons. Remember, this is only available to school counselors, and you cannot get the student assistance questions or the counselor perception questions. So I go into the system and I say, give me a list of students who get A's and B's on the report card and who are planning to go to a college or university or a community college and report that they're not sure or they are not planning to take an AP test or course, I'm sorry, an AP course. Then, so we've got this group of students now who are planning to go to college. They get A's and B's. They're pretty good students, but they're not thinking about AP. So then what we can do is we can tell the computer, and please give me a list of those kids' email addresses with commas in between them. Then I can take that list, put it in the blind copy section of an email, and you can send the kids an email that says, you know, according to the Learn More survey, you report that you get A's and B's in your report card, you're thinking about college, you're not thinking about taking an AP class. We really think you should consider an AP class. You know, please join us for this special meeting after school on Thursday where we're going to talk about AP. You know, so you can send an email right out to those kids. The other thing you can do is you can get an Excel spreadsheet with the students' mailing information or the parents and their mailing information. So you could send the parents an email saying, you know, your student has indicated that they're not planning to take an AP class. This is something we think they should be considering. Please come to our parent night on Tuesday where the AP teachers will be talking about, you know, AP classes. So, you know, lots of different ways that you can use this. One other example that I think would be a huge time saver for counselors, if you're in a high school or a middle school, but probably a high school, where college reps are visiting your school, you could ask the computer, give me a list of students who are interested in Ball State. And then you could just shoot all those kids an email that says, you know, on the Learn More survey you said you were interested in Ball State. A Ball State rep's going to be in our building Thursday at 2. If you're interested in meeting with him or her, please come to the counseling center to get a pass. You know, so again, it's giving you a way to make sure that you are sending a targeted message to a targeted group of kids. Okay, so again, in terms of the privacy of this, who can create student lists? The public never can. Nobody can get lists for student assistance questions or perception of counselor questions. And counselors in colleges and Learn More can get lists for interest plans, choices, and needs, but only in a limited way, only if the students opt in during the survey. One other thing is that the only names that appear on this are 8th graders and above. We felt that at age 8th grade the students were understanding what they were opting into, and that below 8th grade that might be questionable. So the lists are only available for 8th graders and above. Okay, so that is the familiarization. Now let's move to how to set up the survey. Okay, there is a survey admin page that's available for schools. This is not a page where students would go to. It's just a page for adults, for counselors. Okay, and the address is www.learnmoreindiana.org/survey, and I'll pause for a minute. That's an address you'll need to probably want to write down. So www.learnmoreindiana, no spaces, .org/survey. Okay, so when you log in, this is the page you're going to see, and I want to point out the left navigation bar. That's what you're going to be using. And you'll see that there are 4 sections in that bar. The top section applies to schools, to you. The next section is where students can go in to take the survey, but I would recommend not using that section. We'll give you a different way in a minute. Colleges can go in to use the student list generator, and then the public could go in here also to access the public reports, but again it's easier just to take them straight to the public reports and not go through this page. One thing I do want to point out though is that you've got a report link in the school section and a report link in the public section. The difference is that the public section does not include access to the private reports. the school section, when you click that reports, you get asked for a username and password, and then you're given access to those private reports. Okay, so that's where you begin on the learnmoreindiana.org/survey page. And then when you get in, if you click on instructions, you'll be taken to a page that looks like this. And on here, I just wanted to point out that you can go here to a set of print instructions. The webcast that we are recording right now will be on this page. And then also, if you'd like to see all of the questions before deciding if you're going to give the survey or not, you've got the questions right there. Okay. Then there's questions on there's instructions for how to set up the survey and how to give the survey. I'm going to walk through that in this webinar as well. Okay, so in terms, the next link that I want to look at is the link that takes you to the setup page. So if you click on that, you go to a page that looks like this. You're asked for a username and password. Now, every Indiana public school has a username and password. These were mailed to the lead counselor at your school in 2010. So every Indiana school has an RSC, or a Redesigning School Counseling account, and we're using that account username and password to access the Learn More survey. So my guess is that many of you don't have that username and password that was mailed to your school 6 years ago, or even longer than that. So I just want to point out that if you've lost or forgotten your login, that there's instructions right there on how to have us reset that. What that involves is that you'll download a paper form. Your principal will fill it out, and then your principal will either email attach it to us, or they will fax it to us. So on that form, the principal will tell us who they want to have the username and password in their building. So there's lots of counselors. The principal will be directing us to which counselor gets the username and password. What you do with that username and password after you get it is up to you. You can give it to all the counselors, or just have one counselor keep it, or whatever. That's up to you. Okay. Then, so once we've logged in, then you'll get a page that looks like this. So at the top of the page, the first question is going to say, would you like to take the counselor survey? We hope you'll say yes. That has given us a lot of good data to help us advocate on behalf of school counselors. If you say yes, a link will appear that says take the counselor survey. So you'll click on that. And the top part of the survey will ask you to just report the percentage of time that you spend on different tasks. So you'll just do that. Right at the top of that, there's a question that says, are you basing these percentages on an actual time use log? So if you're a Gold Star school and you've been using a time use log, you absolutely will say yes. And otherwise, you're going to say no, and then we know you're just guessing at those time percentages. So, okay, so you'll fill in all the time percentages, and then the bottom part of the survey asks you to just estimate what percentage of the students in your building will have this opportunity while they're enrolled in your school. Will they have the opportunity to take a learning styles assessment, to enroll in Algebra 1, to enroll in an AP class? So what percent have the opportunity? And then the next set of questions says, who's providing the opportunity? It may be the school. It may be a group other than schools. Like if you have a really strong Boy Scout program, there's a Boy Scout merit badge on careers that overlap a lot with the career standards for school counselors. So it may be a group outside of the school that's providing the opportunity. And if you didn't do anything with careers, you would say maybe 3%, and then it's a group outside the school, the Boy Scouts, that are doing this. Or you can check the opportunities not provided, or you can say you're not sure. So, okay, so that's the counselor survey. Then, when you're finished with that, when you scroll down, the setup page will ask you which questions you want to include on your survey. So at the top there's a question that says, are you planning on working on Ask a Ramp or Indiana Gold Star Awards? If you are, then you should click yes, and that automatically includes all 4 question sets. If you're not, then there's an option for you. So the first question set, plans and choices, that's default. Everybody gets that. But then as you scroll down, you'll see that you can opt in to the other question sets. If you can't remember or you want to check before opting in what the questions are, you can just click see the questions, and they'll pop up for you to look at. So after you're satisfied that you've got the appropriate questions checked, then you'll just click the submit button, and as soon as you do, the computer will do this. It will give you a report that says that your survey setup's complete, and here are your student codes. These codes are really important. It's how we connect your students' responses with your school. So you want to make sure that you've written them down, you've proofread them, and that they are exactly right, because if there's one digit off, one letter off, that student's or that grade level's surveys will not be connected with your school. Notice that all of the codes start with the grade level, so we thought that might make it a little easier for you to not get them mixed up. You know that this one is a 10th grade code because it starts with 10. So, okay. So then we're just giving you a heads up that when students survey, they're going to enter these codes on the survey welcome page. We give you a link to that if you want to see it. I'll show you that in a few slides. And then we're kind of giving you a reminder here that students are going to be asked these questions on your survey. Kind of got ahead of myself here. But it's really important that you proofread that and make sure that it's accurate. If it's not accurate, you can click Setup, and that will allow you to re-choose the question sets. So make sure you've proofread that part. Now, you can edit the question sets until the first survey is taken. As soon as the first survey has been taken by a student and submitted, then those survey sets are locked in. So make sure before you start the survey that you've actually got the question sets on that you want, because after the survey starts, you can't change them. If you do edit the questions, the survey codes will change. So just make sure that you realize that if you edit the question sets, you'll get a different set of codes out, and you've got to use the new codes in order to connect the questions with your school. Okay. So then reports, I'm back to the main page now. We just finished survey setup. That's what I'm going to go back one slide. What you needed from survey setup was those codes. Once you've got the codes, you're finished with survey setup. So you can see it literally will take you 1 minute to set up the survey. Okay, so then also in your section there's reports. Notice that that's where you get those icons to all the reports, and the yellow reports are the password protected ones. Okay, so now let's talk about how to give the survey. The survey takes approximately 30 minutes if you've included all 4 survey question sets. We've asked counselors for years, how long did it take you, how long did it take the kids, and 30 minutes is what we typically hear from counselors. Okay, the survey window is a 3-month window. The survey opens March 15th. Actually, if you're watching this webinar, we've already opened the survey a little early, so that as soon as you finish the webcast, you can go in and set up your survey if you want to, while that's all still fresh in your memory. But the official survey window is March 15th to June 15th. We'd like you not to survey your students until March 15th, please. So it's a 3-month window. That's really important. It gives you a lot of time to get the survey completed. So, question, how do I get all of my students to a computer? We are recommending that you survey every student in the building, but it really is not difficult to do. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of schools do this. Last year alone, just in Indiana, we surveyed 40,000 kids. We know it's possible to get all kids to a computer. So here's some things to think about. One thing is that not all students have to survey at the same time. So you may decide to survey your seniors in March before they get started in AP testing and end of course assessments or whatever, the end of year activities. You may decide to survey your freshmen on one of the last days of school when the seniors are at graduation practice or they're doing something else and you're looking for something for your freshmen to get engaged in. And so you could survey at that time. You don't have to survey all students at the same time. Then the other thing that's really helpful in serving all students is to help administrators, especially your principal and teachers, understand the survey's value. This survey, as probably the light bulb's gone off in your head, this is a survey that also applies to school improvement. There's student engagement questions, there's student motivation questions. We disaggregate all of that data by student group. I mean, it's really rich data to inform school improvement questions. We have a lot of schools that actually use this survey as a school climate survey. So you might, talk with your administrators about how you have a survey that's free, that's going to tell them about student engagement, about student climate, and, you'd like to show them the reports and just, really get them on board. We've had a lot of schools tell us that principals will jump at the opportunity to give the survey when they understand how it can be used in school improvement. Okay, then in terms of actually giving the survey, there's several different ways you could do this. The most popular one that schools are using is to have teachers be the survey administrators. So if you're going to do that, what you would do is you would say to your teachers, sometime in this 3-month period, could you find, please, 30 minutes to survey your students? And if each teacher in the school, each second period teacher does that, let's say, that means that every student in the building sometime in that 3 months would be surveyed. If you said to all your third grade teachers, all your fourth grade teachers, sometime in an elementary school, sometime in this 3-month window, would you please survey students in your class? So if you remember when we looked at the survey admin page, there was a set of instructions. That's a one-page set of instructions that you could hand to the teacher and say, thanks for agreeing to do this, or the principal mandated that you do this, and here's a set of instructions. And then you'd also give the teachers the grade level codes, and then you'd ask them to survey sometime between March 15th and June 15th. Most counselors are telling us that they're doing that. Another option is some counselors tell us that they'll bring 30 students at a time into the computer lab, and over a 3-week period, they can get everybody surveyed. So lots of different options. One other option that is not a good option, but if nothing else would work for you, we've had schools, and again, this is not a good option, but we've had schools put an article in the student newsletter, student newspaper, that says to students, please help us improve our school counseling program. Go to this website, put in this code, and please take this survey. I don't think that you'll get a lot of students doing that. You need at least 30 randomly selected students. There's a little bit of question about whether that would really be random. But if you can't survey any other way, maybe that's a way. So the other question that we always get here is, well, how many students do I have to survey? Is it really necessary to survey all the kids? I would strongly encourage you to survey all kids. Here's what happens if you don't, and we've run into this over and over again. Let's say there's some survey results that you don't find especially nice, like maybe 80% of your students tell you that they're being bullied. If you haven't surveyed all students, you will wonder, gosh, I wonder if this data is really accurate, or maybe my sample really wasn't random and somehow I surveyed all the kids that were being bullied. Same thing with if you're using an advisory council or your teachers or your school improvement team or whoever's looking at the data. If you haven't surveyed all students and there's data that they find disturbing or even pleasing, they may wonder, was this really random? If you have surveyed all students, that question can't come up. So given how easy it is to survey all students, if you ask teachers to help, I would really just recommend that you survey all students. If you can't, if that's just not going to happen at your school, um, the smallest number of surveys that you can do and still look at your overall data is 30. So if you surveyed 30 randomly selected students when you need to really make sure that they were random, then you could say, okay, of all of our students, here's how our students respond if there's 30. However, with just 30 surveys, um, when you get to the disaggregated reports, the drill down reports, you probably aren't going to have enough students in your free and reduced lunch group or maybe a specific ethnic group that we are able to even give you data for that group. For ethical reasons with confidentiality, we don't report data unless there's at least 10 students in the student group. So if there's not in your group of 30, if that's all you've surveyed, if there's not in that group, if there's not 10 third graders, you're not going to see third grade data. If there's not 10 free and reduced lunch students, you're not going to see free and reduced lunch data. So again, I would do a whole lot more than 30. Sometimes I can live with 30 per grade level. At least then we know we're going to get a grade level disaggregation. But again, with 30 at grade level, you may not get 10 of every ethnic group or whatever. So the more you can do, the better. I really encourage you to just plan ahead and talk with your principal and your teachers and make this a school climate survey as well as a school counseling survey and survey every student in the building. So, okay, that's that. One question that we get is, what are the best weeks for surveying? Many schools like to give the survey as soon as it opens in late March. That way you're avoiding all the end of the year stuff with, end of the year assessments and AP tests and all that. So late March, early April tends to be a really good time. Okay. So then when you're actually giving the survey, if you're deciding to do this in classrooms, which I hope you are, you would have all of your students in a room that has internet access with computers, and then you would write on the chalkboard or on a poster the survey web address. So here is another web address that you need to write down. When students go in to take the survey, they go to learnmoreindiana.org/student survey. The caps there, you can have caps or not have caps in Learn More Indiana. When I'm talking with kids, I like to put the caps in because it's a little easier to see that this is 3 words, learnmoreindiana.org/student survey. And then you've also written on the board the codes that are specific to your school. So don't write down these codes. These are not your school's codes. But after you set up the survey, when you get your codes out, that's what you would write on the board. So in the instructions that you give to teachers, there's a place where you'll hand write in the codes before you make copies of those instructions. And then the teachers are simply asking the students, go to this website, enter the appropriate code for your grade level, and take the survey. So yeah, so that's the gist of the instructions, really pretty easy. The students can take this on tablets. They can take it on an iPhone. I know we had one school that did a Bring Your Technology to School day, and the kids all brought their iPhones or their tablets or whatever they had. And then, they got some kids on computers, but everybody else took the survey on their iPhone or their tablet. So, okay. Then, here's what the kids will do. So now we're looking at this from a student perspective. So the kids are taking the survey, and they can either go in through the website that I just gave you, which is what I would recommend, or theoretically they could go in through this website, but I would just definitely go to learnmoreindiana.org /student survey. So when the kids log in, when they go in, actually I said log in. There is no login. When students go to this page, the first thing that they're going to do is enter the code that you've given them into that box, and then they'll click the next button. There's a note there about confidentiality and participation. One thing I wanted to point out is that in Indiana, all student surveys have to be voluntary. That's part of state code. So right at the bottom of this, there's a little paragraph that says, you don't have to take the survey. If you'd like to not take it, that would be okay. So most students, I very rarely hear that we have students who decide not to take the survey, but yeah, we put that in there because by code, the students are not required to take the survey. Okay, so then, as students are walking through the survey, what I wanted to show you is that they will see kind of a progress indicator in the left-hand side. So when they're on the welcome page, there will be a little check in front of that welcome section, or I'm sorry, that will be highlighted in a different color. Then when they're answering the questions about you, number 1, that will be highlighted, and then the plans and choices questions and the guidance questions. And then about you, I'll talk about that in a minute, number 2. And then student assistance needs and perceptions, and then the thank you page. If you are not using any of the optional question sets, you'll just see plans and choices, and that's it. Now, one thing I wanted to point out, because I know you're going to get questions about this, and this is in the instructions, but I just wanted to emphasize it, is that the Learn More survey, this survey is actually 2 surveys that appear to be one. And we did that because in the first section, the survey number 1, those about you questions ask students identifiable information, their email address, their mailing address, and we wanted to only be able to associate that data with the plans and choices data. The way we could do that is to just have this be 2 entirely separate surveys that come back to back. They appear as one survey, but it's really 2 surveys. So after the blue line, that's where the second survey begins. None of the student identifiable information can be connected with the assistance and the perceptions. Nothing that they put in about you 1 can be connected to anything in this second survey. But we did want to be able to connect the student assistance and perceptions questions to the demographics. We thought it would be interesting for you to be able to see that on student assistance that 80% of your girls were being bullied while only 20% of your boys were. We thought associating those questions with the demographics would be good. Now, I'm taking the time to explain this because what's going to happen is when your students take the survey, they're going to get the About You questions. They'll answer all the demographic questions, all the identifiable information questions, and then they're going to get to About You 2, and they're going to see the demographic questions again. And kids will raise their hand and they'll say, we already answered these questions a couple of slides back, and now we're asking them again. What's up with this? Is it broken? And we wanted to give your teachers or anybody who's facilitating the survey a heads up that this is planned, and it helps with confidentiality. It makes the questions that come after that point totally confidential. So if students ask that question in the instructions, it tells the teachers if kids ask that, we recommend that you just respond, that's to make everything that comes after this point confidential. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out because we get questions about that every year. Okay, so as kids go forward, here's the About You questions 1, About You 1 questions. So you can see, we're asking identifiable information. Then they go on to student demographics. Then they go on to the student choice questions. So, what do you plan to do after high school? Most of our questions are in the format, do you have this or have you done this? And the answers are going to be yes, no, or not sure. Guidance questions, these are the knowledge questions. Do you have a way to keep track of your assignments and deadlines? Can you name your learning style? Yes, no, or not sure. Then here's with demographics 2, so we're asking them the same demographic questions. And then student questions, student assistance questions. Notice the answer choices on this one say yes, no, not sure, or prefer not to answer. So they don't have to answer any of these questions. They never do on any of the questions. And one other thing, if there's a question that you don't like in any of these sets, just tell your students not to do that question. That's fine if there's a question that your school doesn't feel comfortable with. Perceptions questions, and again, that has the prefer not to answer in the answer choices. Okay, a couple of things. The questions that have come up that are just kind of random that I wanted to address. Sometimes we get the question from Indiana schools, why is this given online? In Indiana, many years ago, this used to be a paper survey. The main reason, or a couple of main reasons, one, it saves a lot of costs in printing and shipping and data processing to do it online. It's environmentally friendly. But the big thing from my perspective is that you can get the results immediately. As soon as 10 students have taken the survey, so that we've met our ethical confidential requirement, you can start seeing results. So you'll have your results as soon as the last student is surveyed, or actually as soon as the 11th student has surveyed, you'll have results. Why is the survey in the spring? If you've been a school counselor in Indiana for a long time, you know that this used to be a survey in the fall. The problem with the fall survey is that we were asking students to remember back to the previous school year. We were saying to 10th graders, think back to when you were a 9th grader. Did you talk to your parents about college in that year? So a lot of counselors felt that maybe made the survey a little less valid because kids were having to remember back to a previous school year. So by giving it at the end of the year, we could just say to kids, did you talk to your parents this year about college? And it just, we think, was a lot easier for the students to answer those questions. The other thing is that when we were asking, when it was a fall survey and we had to ask students about the previous year, the seniors were gone. Let's say this is a 9-12 building. The seniors were gone, and we couldn't ask them about their senior year because they were already off, they had graduated. By having this be a spring survey, we can ask seniors, did you submit a FAFSA this year? Did you do a campus visit this year? Did you apply to a college this year? So we can ask seniors that as a spring survey. Also, if this were a 9 building and we gave it in the fall, we'd be asking the freshmen to remember back to a year when they weren't even enrolled in their school. So by doing a spring survey, it just made it a lot cleaner. So, okay. One other question that we get is, what do the colleges see? And we wanted to remind you that there is on that admin page, there is a place where the colleges can log in. The colleges had to sign 1 million assurances that they would keep the information confidential. There's only one person on the college campus that has the username and password. And before their username and password will work, they have to sign off on all kinds of assurances about confidentiality. So when the college logs in, they see a sheet, a page that looks like this. And again, the big thing is that this tool, Create a Student List, it works just like the student list generator for the K-12 schools. And then what does the public see? Remember on that admin page that there's a place where the public can access reports. And when they go in, they create the report. They say what year they want the report for. They'll say, do they want school level data or county level data or state level data? And then they'll say which county or which school, which grade levels, and then they get a bunch of icons where they can look at different reports. Notice all the icons are blue, all of the yellow icons, the private reports are not available to the public. Okay, so I think that's it. So we kind of covered just the familiarization with the survey, how to use the results, how to set it up, and then we gave you a look at what the students are going to see when they go in. If you have questions about the Learn More Indiana Student Survey, this year those questions should be directed to Learn More. In the past it's been our organization, but Learn More is going to be fielding the questions this year. And there's their phone number and their email address. So please feel free to send any questions that you have to Learn More, and I know that they would be more than happy to answer questions. Okay, so I think that's it, and thank you very much for participating in the webinar and for giving the Learn More survey. As we look at improving school counseling in the state of Indiana, we think that counselors looking at this data to inform the decision about your programs is really important. So we'd like to invite any school that's interested in joining our Redesigning School Counseling Initiative or the state's Indiana Gold Star School Counseling Initiative to contact the Department of Education or contact our organization. We would be happy to help you with that. And again, this Learn More survey informs the decisions that we make in Gold Star School Counseling. So, okay, thanks so much everybody, and I appreciate your participation.